I'll call the meeting to order. Before we get started, let me read the emergency evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency evacuation, an alarm may sound. Everyone should exit the building by way of the nearest stairwell in a safe and effective manner. If the nearest stairwell is blocked by smoke, use the other stairwell. Do not use the elevator. Once you've reached the main floor, follow the exit signs to exit the building and quickly proceed away from the building. Please be mindful of others evacuating and of emergency vehicles. With that said, you have minutes from the July 23rd meeting that were distributed in the packets. Any additions or corrections? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Before we jump into the agenda, is there anybody here that wants to speak, provide public input on items on the agenda? If not, that portion of the agenda is closed. Roger, site plan, Camp Blackberry on Joe Pye Lane.
The applicant has submitted a site plan for the addition of a facility that will provide recreational activities for their guest children. The structure will be located on Joe Pye Lane, adjacent to the recently built swimming pool. The property is identified on tax map 82, parcel 67, and is zoned planned rural resort district. The requested use is permitted within the zone. Site plan indicates that the structure will meet all building setback requirements. The structure will be located along a conservation easement that runs through this parcel. The site is located on a parcel that has agricultural elements and other resort elements that for the overall Blackberry Farms Resort and does not border any property that is not included in a PRRD. Therefore, additional buffering will not be required. After speaking with Justin Teague, it was determined that the size of this project will not require a drainage or erosion plan. The existing pool parking will be shared with this facility. The parking lot provides 15 spaces plus additional area in the turnaround located at the end of this structure. I compared this parking with that of a daycare facility. I figured that was the closest thing that matched, and it would meet those requirements. They do have plenty of room for additional parking in the future if needed. If the site plan is approved, the applicant will be required to obtain building and septic permits before the start of construction.
Any questions or discussion? Is everyone clear on the site plan? Do I have a motion? We have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. In my haste to get into the agenda, I forgot we had an item to add to the agenda. You have a plot plan that was laying on your desk. It is part of the plat that we will be discussing under item 7E, preliminary and final plats. Two or three of the lots will be going for final. Is that correct, John?
All three will be technically, but lot number one will be redivided according to the preliminary plat that comes along with it. I'd suggest that you handle both of them at the same time.
Okay. So do I have a motion to add this plat to item 1 under preliminary plats and major subdivisions? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Preliminary plats.
Did the commission approve the minutes?
Yes.
Did I? Okay, I missed that. I was talking to Doug. Sorry about that.
Yeah, the minutes were approved.
Okay, you ready? Good. Item 1 is the Forester Hills. Now, hold on. Lots 1 through 5 off North Union Grove Road by Janie Fields. There are 5 lots, 4 with county road frontage and 1 served exclusively off the easement. This is the one, you just added an item. It'll go with this one. So first I'd like you to look at item B1 and then take the addition you have and just put it behind there, and we'll address it separately. The outstanding items to be completed for the preliminary plat are on page 5. I'm going to read them into the record. Number 1, the project engineer is to specify the sizes of the tiles along North Union Grove Road for the road frontage lots and the common driveway. Verification of a stormwater pollution prevention plan permit from the state of Tennessee. Add a driveway restriction note for lot 1 and site distant easement note on the plat, and that's actually on the final plat. Number 2, a pre-construction meeting prior to any additional on-site work, and that's for the common driveway. All instructions in the staff analysis for the construction of the common driveway, paving of the entrance, construction of all utilities, drainage improvements, and stabilization of site. Number 3, on-site erosion control measures, including the silt fence, sedimentation trap, and seeding of the site to stabilize the existing cleared ground. Number 4, supply a copy of the maintenance agreement to staff for review. And if you'd like to act on this one separately, and then I'll move to the next one. If you have any questions, I'll address them.
Okay. All right, we have in a preliminary plat of Forester Hills lots 1 to 5 off of North Union Grove. Any questions? Commissioner McClellan?
Tell me again, on lot 1, you said there was a site distance note?
No, on lots 4, you'll see on the next plat, lot 5 has a site distance easement. Is that what you're asking about?
I thought you said lot 1.
Lot 1 will be restricted from driveway access to the shared easement only. It won't have any driveway access on to North Union Grove, except through the easement.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve the preliminary plat. Any further discussion, questions?
You want to add the outstanding items to that motion?
All right, the motion includes approving the plat subject to outstanding items as read into the record. Okay, that is in the motion and the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you. The next one is final. Final on lots 1, 4, and 5 of Forester Hills. That's the plat you've been provided. I'm going to kind of improvise the outstanding items to be completed. The on-site erosion controls, including the silt fence, need to be verified as being in place. I understand they are, but I've not seen it to verify it. I believe also seeding of the site to stabilize the existing cleared ground. They'd probably need to coordinate that with Justin Teague of the Stormwater Department. And we'll also need a copy of the maintenance agreement, or at least I think the maintenance agreement should be drawn up now to include the site distance easement, because all lots 1, 4, and 5 in the future 2 lots will have to have maintenance responsibility for that site distance easement. So having said that, it would be just those 2 items. Did you get those, Marlene? You want me to start again? Okay, we'll get it off the tape.
Are you going to be developing lot 2 and 3 at a later date, or are you just not ready for final?
That's correct. Not ready for final, you're right.
How much longer would you need? Okay, so,
I would like to add a third item. It'd be signature plats and a $40 per lot platting fee. For lots 4 and 5, we'll collect the $40 on lot 1 when they redivide it into 3 lots.
Doug, so when he comes back, then he will subdivide lot 1 as he has in the one that, in the preliminary?
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner McClellan?
Tell me about the 15-foot site distance easement. It's a lot owner's responsibility to keep that clear, no planting and that type?
It'll be all 5 lot owners that'll be responsible for, and we have an actual note specifies what can be, it's basically just grass. And it has to be kept in grass and mowed on a regular basis. It goes in the maintenance agreement. All 5 lot owners, when they buy the lot, they'll be given that at a closing. Whether or not it gets maintained or not, that's the only control we have, is to put it in that maintenance agreement. But it does specify that no trees are to be grown, no plants over, I think 24 inches or something are to be grown, no mailboxes if at all possible. But it's a very specific note. We've used it time and time again. Kevin's familiar with it. Seems to work actually pretty good, doesn't it?
Commissioner
Motion
Henderson?
to approve, subject to outstanding items.
Second.
We have a motion to approve, subject to outstanding items, and a second. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you,
Thank
Doug.
you. Item number 2 begins on page 5. It's the James and Teresa Hare property off of Angus Boulevard. There are 3 lots, 1 with county road frontage and 2 served off of a 30-foot common driveway easement. Outstanding items to be completed are on page 8. Number 1 is a pre-construction meeting prior to any additional on-site work. All instructions in the staff analysis for the construction of the common driveway, paving of the entrance, construction of all utilities, drainage improvements, and stabilization of the site. Number 2 is on-site erosion control measures, including silt fence. And number 3 is supply a copy of the maintenance agreement to staff for review. Once again, this is just a preliminary plat. What we're looking at is basically the common driveway is going to be built for lots 5 and 6. Lot 4 has road frontage, and I did mention to the surveyor that they do have the option to do what the last plat just did. If they wanted to, in the interim, plat off lot 4 on its own, they have that option. We can handle that between now and final plat. That would require another plat from the owner, though. So. That's all I have.
hey Doug, will you remind me or bring me up to date again on within the power line, the transmission line easement, what is allowable or not allowable? I see that lot 32 is in that, and also the driveway does come in through there.
My understanding is with those TVA power line easements is you can typically put, you can use it for grazing animals. They fence it off a lot. Or you can actually probably put your septic in it. I don't believe they want any structures above ground other than a fence. But I have seen people put sheds in them and so forth. But, that's a matter of whether or not someone comes out and tells them to move it. We don't police for it. We don't police that. We wouldn't permit a structure in there. But if they go ahead and move something in later that's not on a permanent foundation, that happens sometimes.
Any other questions, discussion? Do I have a motion? Motion to approve with staff recommendations. And the second. Any further questions, discussion? Bruce, you look puzzled down there. No. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Ready?
Replat of Hatcher Gentry Emery property off of Sevierville Road. Doug?
Yeah, I'd like to make a correction. It's actually the replat of the Hatcher, Gentry, and Emert property, E-M-E-R-T, property off Sevierville Road and Temple Road. There are three lots with road frontage. I didn't put county road frontage because Sevierville Road is actually a state road. Variance request a minimum lot size for 3R. The variance is indicated to the subdivision regulations. The minimum lot size for lot 3R, the previous lot 3 was 27,977 square feet, and the proposed lot 3R is now 26,890 square feet. And the variance isn't because it's less than it was previous. The arterial road, which is Sevierville Road, the minimum lot size is actually 1 acre, so that would be the variance that they're requesting. I just wanted to point out that it was previously smaller, and shall remain smaller. I did speak to I spoke to Roger Fields about whether or not that had a zoning issue. He said it did not. I'll mention something else here in a minute. The reason that they actually made it a little bit smaller was to accommodate Gary Ferguson. He's not here to talk about that, but he had several concerns about it. Everything that you see on lot number 1R, the bigger lot on the corner, is to be removed for a Dollar General store. If it gets approved by the Board of Zone, or let's see, it'd be the Planning Commission, would it not? Site plan to the Planning Commission? No, site plan would come to you here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the Planning Commission will have to look at a site plan. That'll be coming later. This is just it's just a replat. And like I said, the request for the variance is for that almost triangle-shaped lot. The outstanding items to be completed is a consideration of the variance request by the Planning Commission for Lot 3R and signature plats. I do want to mention one thing. Since there was a gentleman in here last time who talked about site distance at this location, I looked at this plat from a subdivision replat standpoint only with existing driveways. They've not requested anything but to replat, and this was platted, in like 2011 or something, Marlene? Does that sound right? Wasn't that many years ago. It's actually the next page. Yeah, 2009. So when I went out and looked at it, I looked at just the existing driveways. I put a comment in here that any future site plan that goes before the Planning Commission should consider site distance for a new commercial property project, perhaps locating it on Temple Road only or something like that, or I just wanted to make you aware of that. That's all I have.
All right, so that, let me make sure I'm getting 3R is the one we need the variance on, right?
Yes.
And it was already, we've actually,
In 2009, you approved it less than 1 acre, which would have required a variance at the time. I don't know if it got approved.
okay. Is everybody, Jerry?
Yes, question. If we approve the variance, 3R becomes smaller and 1R becomes larger,
A little bit, yeah.
okay? Before they go in there and tear everything down and build a Dollar General, will that come back to the Planning Commission, or will that just move forward?
No, the site plan has to come to the planning commission. But it'll be Roger presenting it.
Yes, okay.
Under zoning.
All right.
So the
So all we're
subdivision
all we're
process-
doing tonight is just agreeing to the variance on,
Replat, it's just
3R.
simply a replat.
Okay,
Of the
gotcha.
existing situation. We have no guarantee they're gonna ever come in.
Okay.
And go to site plan.
All right,
So
gotcha.
all we're considering at this point is the replat.
I understand.
Okay.
Okay, so we're looking at the replat of 3R, 1R, and 3R. Everybody understand that? Do I, Commissioner McClellan?
Knowing that 411 North is a 2-lane with no shoulders, and knowing that it's gonna be a proposed Dollar General, I still oppose this, anything commercial on 411 North. So,
Thank you for your input. Do I have a motion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. And your nay is noted, Commissioner McCall. Lot 4 of the Max Hill property by Max and Janice Hill off of Blockhouse Road.
Okay, yeah. Lot 4, Max Hill property, Max and Janice Hill, Blockhouse Road. There's one lot with county road frontage and a remainder greater than 5 acres. There is a variance request in the minimum lot size. I'd like to have you look at the plat first. It says miscellaneous 1 on it from Stroud Surveying. It shows the lot being, I'm pretty sure I'm getting this correct. The lot is actually about, what, 28,000 square feet, but there's 25,577 square feet outside of the area of development hindrance. The minimum lot size on Blockhouse Road is 30,000 square feet on public water. I think it would be important to look at the aerial view next, so you can get an idea of what's going on here. The house at 1430 and 1434 and 1438, from my estimation, they were all built some time ago. They were all approved at the time, according to the regulations at the time for septic and so forth. Let me see what year, I can't remember here. If you'll flip the page, you'll see an old plat. It's a 20-lot subdivision. Now, I'm not sure is that what I wrote? 13-lot, I'm sorry, 1991, a 13-lot subdivision was proposed, but this never got developed. If you go back to the previous page and you see the 3 homes, those are actually sitting on this drawing, lots 7, 8, and 9. But like I said, the subdivision never got recorded at all, but the houses got built on 7, 8, and 9. On the next page, you'll see 2 small plats. Lot 3 and one that's not labeled. These are the 2 houses on the next 2 lots. They were both approved in, 2005 and 2006. And both of them are less than 30,000 square feet. One is actually less than 25,000 square feet, so our regulations at the time must have still been 23,000 square feet. The variance is required now because our regulations have changed. They simply didn't lot this off in the past. I asked them to try to get as much land as possible so that it didn't have to require a variance. But if you'll look at the aerial view again, you'll see right behind where this property line will be, there's a mobile home and a shed. So there's really nowhere else to move the property any further back. And from what I understand from Mr. Ferguson, it works like it is. And it's been there, he's evaluated existing system. He did not confirm to me whether or not there was duplication yet. If you want to add that to the subject to item, that would be fine. He's just not had time to go out there and do his field work. But I thought he would have got to it before the meeting, but I can't confirm that he did. So basically, they're asking to divide the lot into what they originally thought it was going to be, never got recorded, and now requires a variance. So I'm going to read the outstanding items to be completed, and then I'll try to address any questions. Number 1 is the consideration of the variance request for Lot 4. And number 2 is signature plats and a $20 per lot platting fee. I would add, if you'd like, confirmation by Gary Ferguson that he can make this lot work, which I assume he can since there's a new existing house there. But if you want to add that, that's fine. And I would like to add one more caveat. I'm pretty certain I spoke to Roger and he said there's no zoning implications, but I will speak to Roger again, and if there are any, we'll pass it on to the BZA. It'll have to go to the BZA as well. So.
Does everybody understand what Doug is proposing here?
I'm not for sure. We're trying to approve these 2 lots.
No, sir.
Okay.
Now, if you go back to the one before the aerial photograph, and it says miscellaneous 1 on it, and it's showing 1 lot.
So you're just basically doing a lot line adjustment?
No, we're creating a new lot.
Yeah, I see. I'm trying to compare it to what
It's the one that says miscellaneous 1. Okay. These 2 are.
So I think what we're doing is, look at your aerial. 1438 on the aerial, we're creating a lot for 1438.
Sorry about
You're
that
making that
confusion.
All right, go ahead and turn your mic on.
recommendation to approve with Gary Ferguson's identifying the duplication.
Could you make that a motion to approve
A
instead of
motion.
a recommendation?
Yes, motion, I'm sorry.
All right, we have a motion to approve, motion and a second. Motion to approve, subject to staff comments, and adding to the comments, the final approval of Gary, of the Health Department. Yes. For the duplication area. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you for all the confusion, Doug.
Yeah, thank you.
John, long-range planning.
Okay. There's 2 items in long-range planning, and I want to also mention a couple of things in staff reports about training. You've got a memo about proposed amendments to the subdivision regulations to address ownership and tax issues of common open space, and this is for setting a public hearing if you're in agreement with the proposed amendments. Proposed amendments came to you at the last meeting. You had instructed me to check with the attorney who had given the original memo that sparked these changes. You'll notice on page 4 that there is a body of an email from attorney Rob Goddard, and he says he's in agreement with this. We've worked out something with the assessor's office, and he is in agreement that this will actually work from his standpoint as far as his objections. So the amendment itself is in 3 sections, starting on page 2. 5.03.4 is a new section. The next section down, 6.02.63, is an amended section of an existing portion of the subdivision regulations, and highlighted are the wording of what is proposed to be changed. And really what that does is just clarify what is in 5.03.4, or adds that clarification there. The same thing on 9.07.1E, just adding a new subsection that notes the requirements of 5.03.4. This, in short, will require that if there's a common open space, it's set aside and not part of a lot, then there has to be an undivided interest of all the other lots that are involved in that subdivision, an undivided interest of each lot in that lot. That allows the assessor's office to assess the value of that standalone open space to each one of the lots in the subdivision, and he can put a minimal amount of valuation then on the open space itself and bring it below the requirement for having an assessment of taxes. So it will be taxed, but it will be taxed by relationship to all the other lots in the subdivision. Again, this is in agreement with the assessor's office and the attorney, and if you would like to have a public hearing, the next public hearing that will allow legal notice is October 22nd, our October regular meeting.
Everyone comfortable with the language in the amendment to the subdivision regulations, noting we will be the approving agency of the subdivision regulations? Commissioner Allen.
Hey, one question. It says that a HOA or like a property owners association has to be formed. Does that need to be in there?
No, the Property Owners Association, part of that is for maintenance purposes, not for taxation and ownership purposes. All we're doing is saying we're going to allow a standalone open space. Will have to be maintained by a property owners or homeowners association, but each lot is then going to have an undivided share of ownership in that open space. That's for tax purposes only. The maintenance is a separate issue.
Understood. The reason I'm asking is the lower priced housing subdivisions normally don't have one of those.
No,
and you're forcing them to have one right here, and I'm just curious. I mean, you know how it is, they'll make one and then it dissolves, but do we need that language in there, I guess is my question.
It's already there in separate sections.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter about the price of the housing. We have some actually mobile home, manufactured home subdivisions that have those requirements. And I can't guarantee you that they're always met, but that's a separate issue from taxation.
So appropriate motion would be to set public hearing?
Set the public hearing October 22nd.
Motion to do so. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All right, motion to set public hearing. What was that date, John? Next
October 22nd.
meeting?
It'd be our October regular meeting date.
Okay. So we will be setting a public hearing for public input or public comment on this change to the subdivision regulations for the October meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Joe.
Ready? Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Next item is discussion on design standards for curbs and gutters in the subdivision regulations. This comes after consideration at the last few meetings, and particularly the last meeting, regular meeting in July, and the setting of the setting of a workshop on August 6th. I provided you with my notes from the August 6th meeting, and you know, if you think that there are errors in that, I'd be glad to entertain that. I also had a link to the YouTube videotaping of that meeting for anybody that was interested in it, and it comes before you for disposal or any further discussion and direction to staff.
Floor is open for comments. Commissioner McClellan.
Well, I personally believe that we don't need to take away the curb and gutter option for the builder that's got the money to do it, but I think we need to add the extruded curb as another option. You have the option of the curb and gutter, and you have the option of no curbs and gutters. And I'd like to add this 12-inch extruded curb as a third option or possibility for the builder.
I'm not the 12-inch extruded.
You want to, is that a mountable?
Yes.
Okay.
We had the drawings of it last time, I wish that part
It's actually, I think, on the last page of the memo.
Any other comments or questions of Bruce, to his recommendation?
I'd like to just kind of add to what Bruce is saying. I think, Bruce, what you're saying, if you had an option that would not jeopardize the integrity of the overall development, but give an option available, I don't think that would be a bad way to look at something. I've said many times, you know, if there was a way to give a developer an extra lot or some sort of, you know, variance with more open space, you know, I think that's our responsibility, is to, you know, consider those.
Okay. Jerry?
I guess of all the comments that were made during the workshop, I was most impressed with Superintendent Dunlap's comments about all the effort that had gone into in past years to come up with that, of people more qualified than us. So my feeling would be to leave it as it is and not take any other action.
Staff, do you have any comments?
Well, just to point out that if you effectively lower the bar to a cheaper alternative, you will never get the other alternative. So you need to consider that. I mean, it's not a matter of adding it to. If you add it to, you basically negate the present standard.
Clifford?
My biggest concern with the curb and gutter, you know, I mean, I've been noticing it and looking at it a lot, and you just about need a street sweeper to keep those things clean, it looks like, and prolonging 20 or 30 years longer for the additional cost that it'll take to repair those, you know, we may be long gone, but as are the people who's coming behind us that's going to have to maintenance that and take care of it, are they going to be saying, what were they thinking when they start repairing the curb and gutter versus the cost of repairing the extruded drive-over curb, I think is something we got to really think about.
Another tricky situation, and you know, Mr. Dunlap brought this. You know, we've kind of got a double standard with the urban growth boundary, and sometimes that's a little troublesome. You know, I thought about that a little bit. You know, we're kind of going against what our standards are by approving those, but I guess we really don't have you don't have a choice in that manner.
Doug, refresh me on the double standard.
I think what Tom's referring to is that Mr. Dunlap has to maintain curbs that are approved by Maryville Planning Commission in the urban growth boundary, and then outside of that area, it's the curbs that we have in the regulations currently. I think that's what you're referring to, right? And Mr. Dunlap's here to address anything as well.
Superintendent, do you have any additional words you'd like to give us tonight? You've heard our discussion, so you know my dilemma.
I've heard enough last work session, but yeah, the double standard, we're trying to eliminate that. We're trying to get Maryville on our same page. Right now, Maryville is laying a lot of it off onto the builder itself. Their curb is the extruded curb, but they've got to have a backing. When they cut that curb, the builder of that lot, on that lot, has got to put the concrete backing in behind it to keep the integrity of the curb itself. As we spoke last time, we spent a lot of time and a lot of efforts in getting with the developers that were going real strong at that time to work with us and help us. And this is what we came up with, and like Tom, I think we're going backwards. If we drop back, we're going backwards. I think we need to leave it like it is. Let's go forward with it and let the county benefit from it. Thank you.
Have you had much or any issues, just out of curiosity, in the urban growth boundaries, or the ones that
No.
that we have approved?
No.
So
Most developers, when they know they're going to go to Maryville planning, okay, that's the urban growth. You're going to follow Maryville's planning. And like I say, we're working with Maryville. I feel we'll come to a consensus and then get them closer to us to where we will be basically the same curbing design that the county's got, that Alcoa's got, which is a greater curb, but you know, this is our compromise. And I feel that Maryville will come under play also.
I can speak for the City of Maryville's Planning Commission. I'm not aware of any discussions amongst the Planning Commission at the City of Maryville of changing or enhancing theirs.
We're not ready to have them to go forward. We've not asked them to go forward. We've been talking with Brian Boone, Scott Poland, on some design standards to make everything uniform. But they're not ready to bring it to Maryville planning, but we're still in the discussion phase, and I think we'll see something come out of it before it's over. Our intent is not to make it hard on any developer. I've been the most friendliest developer superintendent that's ever been, I think, the longest seated, but I've worked with them. And then over the period of time, they saw that, and I think that's why they decided to work with us when we went into this study several years ago and accepted what we were trying to change and saw the reason for the change. Any more? Thank y'all.
Thank you, Superintendent. I don't get a sense, so I need to, somebody make a recommendation and let's vote it up or down. Commissioner Roddy?
I make a recommendation that we leave it as it is.
Second.
Okay. We have a recommendation and a second, and we'll just take a roll call vote that we leave the standard as it is. All those in favor, say yay, and we'll roll call it.
Does this end discussion from here forward, I guess?
That would basically end the discussion. I mean, we would be leaving the standard as it is.
But at some later date, it could be brought back
Oh,
up.
yeah, I mean, this,
Yeah,
this is not a zoning.
It's not dead forever, Tom.
Well, the reason I brought that up, I didn't mean to stop the process, but just kind of like echoing back to what Bruce said, if there was some sort of an alternative or a second option for a developer, depending on multiple, scenarios, maybe the number of lots, lot sizes, I would be open for consideration of that option.
Commissioner Allen?
I guess I'm a little confused about what we're voting on here. I mean, I understand the up or down thing, but what are we voting to take it off of long-range planning? Is that?
No, I'm trying to get a consensus as to where we stand right now in terms of leaving the standard is. I'm not trying to shut down if if we want to look at something more, we're not voting to send this to the.
So we're voting to end discussion until something new comes up.
Until we have something that we'd want to add to it.
If I could clarify, this came to you for your discussion and for direction to staff. So if you vote for this motion, the direction to staff is to leave it the way it is, and it will be taken off the long-range planning.
And if you don't want to take it off long range, vote it down. And but I'm at an impasse right now. I'm just trying to figure out where we're at, and we'll if you want to make a second motion or recommendation, then we'll do that. So, right now, the recommendation that we're voting on is to leave the standard as it is and basically take it off the long-range planning. Is that a fair statement, John? Roll call.
Andy Allen? Yes. Sean Carter? Yes. Geneva Harrison? Yes. Jeff Hedrick? Tom Hodge?
No.
Bruce McClellan? No. Jerry Roddy?
Yes.
Clifford Walker?
No.
Ed Stuckey?
Yes. We're leaving the standard as it is for right now. That is not to say if you have some other recommendation, but gentlemen, I'm not equipped technically. And we're going to have the input and the under blessing of the highway department. So if you've got some other alternatives, and I'm not against adding an alternative for the builders, but I don't think we're prepared at this point, Bruce, to just take your recommendation and add the 12-inch mountable. If you want to make another recommendation, the floor is open. We're in discussion.
I do, yeah, I'll make a recommendation for the 12-inch mountable curb as an option.
All right, hold on. Yeah. We just voted, this is gone, and now we're voting it back in.
Well, I don't think we're prepared to I mean, I can ask for a vote on that, Bruce, but I don't think anybody is equipped to do a 12-inch mountable tonight. But we're not, this is not like we were doing a zoning and we've got to wait a year to come back to it. Do you want to test the sentiment for a 12-inch mountable, Bruce?
Yes.
All right,
just keep in mind, this will again be as a direction to staff and not as an approval of anything tonight. We can't, to change the subdivision regulations, you've got to go through a process. You have to have an actual formal resolution before you. So if this passes, staff will bring back some wording at the next meeting, and then you can set a public hearing. You'd have to have a public hearing before you could vote on it.
Bruce, could I make a suggestion to your motion?
Yes.
Maybe you could word it similar to Maryville City's regulations of what they have, what their direct staff to maybe inform us and educate what their regulations are.
I recommend this, what Tom just said.
For the record, and since it's direction to staff, what did you just say?
I would like to direct the staff to bring the City of Maryville's regulations that we are currently, as I say, approving in the urban growth boundary for discussion amongst the Planning Commission.
I think
that was actually in the last memo.
It was. I think I need to clarify something. What Bruce is recommending for is a modification of the Maryville curb for a fully mountable 12-inch extruded curb. Maryville's is different than that. That's the one that Bill spoke about, where they have to actually cut it, and then they have to, the builder has to back it up with, I'm saying that right, am I not, Bill? So it really wouldn't be the Maryville standard. It would be a version of it and what I reported in the second, I think it was the second memo, was that, and from speaking to different engineers, and we would basically be making one, it would be our own extruded 12-inch mountable curb that would be similar in some fashion to this. That's what Bruce is talking about. And I would highly recommend that if you do decide to change it, that you get the highway department involved in that design.
Okay. Could I make a suggestion, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Given that there seems to be some concern about the Maryville Planning Region standard and the Maryville standard, if you would want to amend your motion and to invite some representatives from Maryville staff to come here to discuss that at the next meeting, I think that might be appropriate. Might be good to get it from the horse's mouth, any discussions that might be going on between the highway department and engineering over there, and their thoughts on their own design.
Well, and that would include, obviously, Brian Boone, just for questions and answers as well. And then we'd be prepared to, like you said, leave it alone, address it again, go forward, or whatnot.
Mr. Walker?
Well, I mean, if the city of Maryville's urban is working and they have a standard for cutting and that part, I think we've got to adopt something similar to that so that it works as well. So is there a problem?
I need to clarify that. I'm sorry. I need to clarify
Okay, go
that.
ahead.
You're talking about two different curbs again. If you're talking about the Maryville mountable curb, it's technically a mountable, non-mountable curb. You have to still cut it. That is still an option, but that is one that we don't have a curb cut permit in place.
We're talking about the one you don't even cut. You just pour up to it and drive over it.
Yes.
Gotcha.
I'm not saying you can include both options. I mean, if that's what you want to do. I'm just telling you those are two different curbs.
If I understand it right, the Maryville standard requires a permit.
Correct.
And then a follow-up inspection to make sure they've done that.
Correct. If you remember at our workshop last week, the county doesn't have a mechanism in place for a permit or the inspection process.
That's
You know, is there a possibility that
I heard him say he's laid off 40 people in the last X years, and now we're going to pass something that tells him to invent a new process and then hire one or more people to go out and inspect curbs?
The house gets inspected anyway. Why can't the inspector that's doing the final inspection inspect that as well? And that be part of the final OS.
Commissioner Allen?
I'm sorry.
These things, if you want to carry this forward, I've gotten one direction already to leave it the way it is, and it will therefore be taken off the long-range planning agenda up until you bring it up again sometime. There seems to be an alternative now being proposed as direction to staff, and let me see if I can kind of paraphrase it, to adopt a new alternative standard, considering also the requirements that Maryville has in their planning region, and considering also maybe some practical difficulties in matching Maryville's because we don't have a permit. Does that kind of encompass what's been discussed so far? But that means that we will be bringing back Maryville to you to discuss some of those issues.
I would definitely agree with what Mr. Walker just said, that if we can have an inspection process incorporated, that would, to me, have to go hand in hand with that. And if his idea, you know, to me it makes sense, but I'm not sure if that's, you know, a possibility or not. I think we could.
John, why don't you, if I have the consensus of the commissioners,
well, I think
bring us back look at the alternatives, but the breadth, the full breadth of those alternatives, which would mean what do we have to do, and is it even feasible from an inspection standpoint?
Was there a motion and a second on the floor? We were talking about amending it.
We had a recommendation.
Well, that was what the first one was. It was in the form of a motion to make a recommendation, but I'm just looking at whether you're going to take a vote, or are you just directing me as a chairman to bring that back?
Well, we can vote. Bruce, do you want to amend your recommendation?
I'll make the motion that John present to us next month the Maryville curb and gutter, or Maryville curb cut, and then the 12-inch mountable. Also saying that even if with the 12-inch mountable, it would do the same thing that Maryville does, require a curb cut permit and final inspection.
All right, let's have a roll call and see where our sentiment is.
Was there a second on that?
Do I have a second? I'll second. We have a second. All those in favor of Bruce's recommendation signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. Roll call.
Andy Allen? Sean Carter? Geneva Harrison? Jeff Hedrick? Tom Hodge?
Yes.
Bruce McClellan? Jerry Roddy?
No.
Clifford Walker?
Yes.
Ed Stuckey?
No.
Yes.
We're back to what we started out with. It lays at rest for the moment, for the time being. John?
The last thing I have is just some information. We provided you, I provided you several emails, and also I think there is a handout, a little memo about training opportunities. Most of you are within an hour and a half of having your 4 hours. There are a few that only have 1 hour, and you need to probably step up a little bit, although we've got plenty of months to go, plenty of weeks to go before the end of the year, and I'll get you those hours somehow. But I would recommend that you take a hard look at the opportunities that are coming before you, particularly the one on October 29th, which is a requirement by the state for training in property rights, and you can meet your property rights requirements on October 29th. Just will tell you that if you cannot make it, and I don't recommend you don't make it because Dan Hawk really gives a good presentation on that, but if you can't make it, I have in the past gotten his slides and done a reduced, about a 1 hour presentation on that. I think, Mr. Allen, weren't you in that last year? It was a lively discussion of a few people, and I think there's more discussion than presentation, but I can get that for you at the end of the year also if it's an emergency. My goal is to start taking a little bit of time off in December because we've had in the past carryover of vacation days, and I think that's going to get harder and harder to do given our new mechanism of accounting for time, which is computer-based and not human-based. So I don't want to interact with a computer trying to carry over my vacation time next year. Thank you.
Just a reminder, that rights one is 2 hours. So if you've got 2 hours under your belt, you can get the next 2 hours on the personal property rights. We are adjourned. Oh, I'm sorry. Public input on items not on the agenda. Audience, anybody? We are adjourned. Thank you.